high. Clearly, any building whose doorway had these monumental proportions must have been big. A major clue to what the whole building looked like lies 30 miles along the coast. Cleopatra researcher Andrea Kay is visiting what some believe to be a copy of the Pharaoh. Only this is a scaled-down version.
We are at the lighthouse at Taposiris Magna. In Ptolemaic times, this is a very large settlement, and this lighthouse is built on a Ptolemaic cemetery. It probably served as a burial monument of some kind and possibly a signal tower.
The Pharaoh was at least 4 times the height of this tower, but Andrea Kay believes its shape and proportions are the same.
It's got a large square base with an octagonal middle section and a cylindrical top.
This exactly matches ancient descriptions of the Pharaohs. Using the design of this lighthouse and the scale dictated by the doorway found in the harbour, it's possible to create a picture of how the landmark at the gateway to Cleopatra's empire might have looked. Standing almost 400 feet high, this was among the tallest buildings on Earth, right up until its destruction in the 14th century. If the builder's intention was to win prestige, it worked.
The Pharaoh's lighthouse was a feat of engineering that welcomed any visitor into the harbour at Alexandria, but it also showed the world that Alexandria was the centre of power in the Mediterranean.
The Ptolemies had a word for it, trophy, sometimes translated into English as luxury, and trophy means everything in excess. Philanthropic endeavors, building endeavors. So whatever it is that you're doing, go over the top when you're doing it. And you could go over the top because you had unlimited resources at your disposal.
This would have been Cleopatra's inheritance, boundless self-belief and the freedom to rule. But the city that Egyptologists are trying to rediscover was under threat. Cleopatra's ancient empire was about to sink from view. Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, was the product of a unique culture and of extraordinary times. To truly understand her, today's archaeologists are delving into the world which she came from and which she left irrevocably changed. That means looking at Alexandria, the city where events which would alter the course of history were played out. But in the 2,000 years since a Roman army seized Cleopatra's empire, the city's moved on. Alexandria is now a sprawling modern metropolis. Painting a picture of the city that Cleopatra knew involves a lot of detective work. Egyptologist Andrea Kay is using a GPS system to map the exact locations of the few landmarks which survive from antiquity.
We're trying to get a better idea about the layout of the ancient city of Alexandria by mapping it on a computer.
She's collating information gleaned from ancient accounts and from the maps that predate the city's modern development. It enables her to identify where key buildings once stood.
It gives you a better idea of what was there, and by piecing it all together, we can try to complete that picture as best we can to try and understand the kind of city that Cleopatra lived in.
In 2,000 years, the very shape of the landscape has changed. Since Cleopatra's time, there's been a lot of erosion and subsidence of the land. And over the centuries, the old city's been built upon time and time again. Any undiscovered ancient remains lie a long way below street level. For scholars hunting evidence of Cleopatra and the world she knew, the focus of interest has to be on what was the heart of her city, the palace district.
This would have been a very important part of the city that Cleopatra lived in. She would have lived right over there. It would have been one of the most opulent portions of the city, and the palace district taking up a whole fifth of the area inside the city walls.
This is one part of the city where we know Cleopatra lived. But archaeologists have always assumed that it was lost forever.
The sea levels have changed so much that part of the city, the part that bordered the harbour, is now underwater. It's in an unfortunate location in terms of earthquake and seismic action. So it has suffered from earthquakes and even a report of a tsunami, a kind of tidal wave, in the 4th century AD.
But one man was convinced there were still clues out there waiting to be found. In the early 1990s, marine archaeologist Frank Goddio began diving in the harbour. He was looking for fragments. What he found was a sunken city. He and his team have begun to exhibit some of the many items they brought to the surface. Evidence of a uniquely rich culture.
First, we dove to see if something could be seen, and you could see only sediment, nothing. Everything was buried under the sediment, underwater. Then we had to start doing underwater excavation, and little by little we saw red granite. And it was a block of red granite, and cleaning it, I saw hieroglyph. And this was the first artifact we found in Alexandria Great Harbor. We found thousands and thousands of artifacts, beautiful sculptures. It's a kind of a vision from the past and of everything which was there in the past.
There were ruined buildings, as well as statues honouring various gods and pharaohs. Each object added to an emerging picture of ancient Alexandria. And finally, a breakthrough, a find they could tie directly to Cleopatra.
We found sometimes artifacts related to her. We found, for example, the likeness of the father of Cleopatra.
Did she commission this statue or witness its construction? Another bust has an even stronger personal connection.
We found also a beautiful head of black granite, and it has been identified as Caesarion, the son of Cleopatra and Julius Caesar.
This is a bust of Cleopatra's son Caesarion, fathered by Julius Caesar, then murdered by his successor. It's thought to have stood alongside a statue of Cleopatra herself. It identifies the harbour site where it was found as the location of the Ptolemies' palace. Together, the finds from the underwater excavations provide a tangible link to a time that has passed into legend. They bring us face to face with the city of the real Cleopatra.
In the mind of everybody, there is a merge between Cleopatra and Alexandria. It's a kind of synonym. And Alexandria had a very important role in the development of the Western world and in passing the messages of the antiquity to the new Western world.
The effects of what unfolded here during Cleopatra's reign would be felt around the world. But in those dying days of the Egyptian Empire, Alexandria shone as the greatest city on earth.
The Alexandria of Cleopatra was the be-all and end-all. Some people say it's the New York of the times, the Paris, you pick the capital. It was the place to be. So what you're looking at is this glistening marble metropolis, and Rome living in wooden hovels, a hick town, as opposed to the hip jet-set place to be.
And it was this very prosperity which put not only Alexandria but the whole of Egypt at risk of invasion. The problem for Cleopatra and the people of Egypt was that they were victims of their own success. Egypt had an apparently inexhaustible source of wealth, bound to make other powers envious. For 3,000 years, the River Nile had nourished Egyptian civilization. Its annual flood brought millions of tons of fertile soil, saturating the plains and creating rich farmlands.